Welcome back, all you squirrels and Sasquatches, to Blastoise's Lair, MetaZoo gameplay, strategy, and tech. Thanks for stopping by. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you like what we have going on with this build or any of our other builds. If you have any comments on this deck or any other decks, improvements you'd like to see, please be sure to comment below. Or contact us at Blastoise's Lair, tcg.com, or at Blastoise's Lair on Instagram. Today we will be profiling Paul's Squirrel Squad. This is going to be a dual aura deck with Spirit and Forest. Honestly, this is a super fun and straightforward beastie blitz, perfect for beginners and ripe for some competitive tweaks. We call on some forest friends for the build and the mighty power of the Black Squirrel of Lincoln County. Getting as many squirrels out as quickly as possible will enable you to roll the board and inflict some major tribal boosted damage on your opponent. Relying on boosts from low-cost beasties like Gumbaroo and Flitterix, your squirrels will be buffed to terrifying levels while you utilize all your forest spells and Wood Devil's abilities to draw from your spellbook consistently. While the squirrels gnaw away at the early game, Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox will help swing things mid-game, hopefully coming at lower cost than face value. A few spooky spirits, like Fetish Artifact, Morpheus, and Ghost Forest, will make your opponent wish they never entered the Haunted Forest. For a quick deck profile breakdown on Paul's Squirrel Squad, control, we gave it a 3 out of 5. It's a little middle of the road. Honestly, this is kind of a spam similar to like a beastie fearsome critter deck where you're trying to get as many beasties out as possible, but it does run a little bit slower than some of those super fast decks. Like I said, it's going to be a 4 out of 5 on aggression. We're trying to get out there quick. A ramp, it's going to be a 5 out of 5, primarily due to the low cost of a lot of the beasties and spells. The primary beasties here are going to be the Squirrels, Flitterix, and Gumbaroo, and they all cost 1. And the most expensive spell you have here is 2 costs. So a lot of stuff you're going to be able to get out of your hand quickly. Consistency, also mainly due to those reasons, it's going to be a 4 out of 5. You get pretty consistent hands and can get on the board quickly and kind of build towards what you need. Fairly reasonable. And on a budget of 1 to 5, this is the least expensive build. This is a 1 out of 5. This was really born out of trying to come up with a kind of fun and quirky idea for my kids to play. And with that kind of idea, wanting to create something, like I said, low cost that we could quickly play and that they could understand easily. Okay, so first let's dive into a little beastie breakdown. Obviously, as stated, despite the name of it being Paul's Squirrel Squad, the squirrel is the main star here, the Black Squirrel of Lincoln County. Okay, so it doesn't look like much on face value, but don't underestimate this beastie. It's 25 LP, 20 HP profile. Doesn't really mean much, given that there's 7 per spellbook and they have tribal boost. So that means these little feisty guys are going to get plus 10 HP and plus 10 life point for every other squirrel on the board. And there's going to be even ability to get even more than 7, which we'll go over here in a second. Another kind of nice feature on the Black Squirrel is you can contract this page for 1 Dark Aura. That's one of the notations on the card here. We're not going to be using that ability in this deck. But pretty cool that you could start to build some Spirit Dark decks, potentially built around this little guy as well. Okay, so we mentioned potential to get even more tribal boosts, and that's going to be because of this guy right here, Flitterix, who's super crazy. This guy's another small but mighty beastie. This fearsome flyer is great for a few reasons. One, because he can fly. He's one of the few fearsome critters that can fly. But another is because he has the convert ability, which is going to allow you to tap him to play a forest aura, essentially, which will help you with your ramp even faster. The other thing, which is nice, is and this is kind of why they're included in the first place, another little note here. Even though it's listed as a beastie fearsome critter for its tribe, it says this beastie also has the tribe squirrel. which obviously is huge because we're going to be trying to spam the board with the black squirrels. So you're going to get your tribal boost not only from the squirrels, but also from the Flitterix. The one caveat is Flitterix doesn't have tribal boost itself, so it's only going to boost your black squirrels. It's not going to work the other way around. Something just to kind of keep in mind when you're adding up attack damage for swings. But the one thing that I didn't note here, the kicker on all of it, if Acorn is within eyesight, this beastie has spell proof. So Acorn is an approved fourth wall item now. So you know, basically everything I just went over for one for a 1-drop is sheesh. I mean, come on, that's a great little beastie right there. The other thing, so it is a beastie fearsome critter, so we threw and had to give some fearsome critter love to Gumbaroo as well, you know, to play early game and potentially bounce some of their tougher beasties that they might get on the board. But once again, since Flitterix is a beastie fearsome critter as its original tribe, it's going to boost your Gumbaroos as well. If you actually needed to swing with your Gumbaroo, it's mostly just going to help with the life points. So, you know, these are all super low cost, you know, super available cards that interact really well together. The kind of kickers on this deck, Wood Devil is really included in not only every forest deck, but really just any deck at all, because of its great abilities, not only to convert, you can play it as a trap, and it's also you're going to be able to spread out your damage in increments of 5, which can be helpful in certain situations. The beefy beasties we included here, it only made sense to include Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox. So what's nice here is we did include Germinate in our spell profile, which we'll get to in a second. But you know, theoretically, we're going to be able to get these all cost 1 anyway, but we're going to be able to get these beasties out for less than face value with our Germinate. And then also with Paul Bunyan's not only, you know, the great Thunderous Chop attack move with the ability to do an additional 75 if you destroy a Forest Terra, but it's also going to let you bring Babe the Blue Ox out for Forest Aura, and if you read on Babe's contract ability, you can bring him in for 1 less aura if Paul is in the arena. So you know, you're going to be able to bring hopefully both these beasties out for 4 if played correctly. Okay, well, the beastie profile was pretty straightforward. These spells honestly are like the secret sauce, thanks mostly to the Spirit's abilities and some of the artifacts that we'll get to in a second. You really want to rely on growth. You know, we've talked about these spells in a couple of other builds. You really want to rely on growth, which is going to allow you to bookmark 5, as well as Germinate, which is going to allow you to bookmark 1, and bring in a beastie with forest bonus ability in for 1 less, which is basically everybody in your spell book. So once, like we were saying, the ideal play would either bring out Wood Devil for 1 cost, or Paul Bunyan for a 4 cost, which then would allow you to bring Babe out for 4. So you know, these are really help are trying to kind of mill through your deck, but these are going to help you kind of keep the opponent off balance as well. So everybody knows Morpheus will kind of sleep any annoying beasties that they spring on you that your squirrels can't handle. And then this one I feel like is a little less known, the Ghost Forest. So this is a great spell, and you'll want to kind of lay in the weeds and wait to play this one at the appropriate time, because it can be contracted at any time, which is important. And for optimal damage, you want to hold it until just after your opponent has wiped out a handful of your beasties, because Ghost Force is going to create a token, a 30 life point, 30 HP token for each beastie that was destroyed. So, you know, if you have a board full of squirrels and somehow they take off 3 or 4 of them, it's essentially going to replace those guys with another wall of beasties, which is super annoying. So these are the icing on the cake, I guess, before I move on with the Ghost Forest, is after you play it as a spell, it stays in the arena as a special Terra, as a forest special Terra, which is going to buff, once again, all your beasties and allow you to potentially utilize Thunderous Chop for the extra bonus with Paul Bunyan in additional time or 2. Okay, we'll quickly review Artifact, Aura, and Terra. And you know, the last potentially unexpected surprises here, as previously mentioned, will be probably in your Fetish artifacts. These are once again amazing spirit cards that came out in the Seance deck, which are really splashable with any kind of deck. It's essentially going to allow you to take control of any beastie as long as you have the ability to pay the aura cost on face with any aura type. So it's pretty nice, because if you're not able to assemble your squirrels quickly enough, it can kind of act as a stall, hopefully, while you either find germinate or growth to mill through and find those beasties that you need. It's also a spirit. It's only got 10 life points, so very fragile, but it's a spirit, which makes it a little bit tougher to take out. So a good kind of a stall card if you happen to not be able to get those squirrels in the first couple of hands. The other things that we included here, so Old Book's Crying Tree obviously fits perfectly from an artifact essence standpoint, being that it taps for both 1 forest and spirit. We only included 1, you could definitely include 2. We've also included 2 Prism Aura since it's a dual build, 5 Forest Aura since our biggest beasties are from a forest side, 3 Spirit Aura, because those beasties are pretty low cost. From the squirrel standpoint, so along with the Prism and the Old Book's Crying Tree, you should be able to afford to get those out pretty quick. They're all fairly cheap. And the last, this is definitely not integral to the build and could be either splash for another aura or another spell, but we did include a Forest Terror because it does boost basically every beastie in the deck, but once again not necessarily I have to have due to the special effects of the Ghost Forest spell, which we just reviewed. All right, last we will review some weaknesses to this deck, some archive and potential budget options. So as I previously mentioned, like, this deck was honestly made as kind of a joke with my kids. Like, we saw this card come out in one of the release event decks and thought it was hilarious that they made a squirrel card. And then, like, we put it together and it was crazy fun and simple to play, and actually won a few quick scoop games with some boosted up squirrels. And we had low expectations, but it was straightforward for the kids to kind of understand, just because it's mostly a spam deck, but it's also like a little quirky, and won a few games, like I said, pretty quick. With that being said, there are some pretty easy counters to the deck to kill off, the low-cost beasties if you can't get them out and synchronized early enough. And if you don't have the board states, the spells don't really hit as hard. So there's some ways around it. If I were to run this deck more competitively, I'd probably remove Paul and Babe. This was honestly from a purely fun and engagement standpoint. I've been actively searching and creating decks to include Paul and build around Paul, but honestly, he's not very feasible in the current meta. So in the end, it just felt right to have Paul and Babe there to back up their forest friends, right? But if I were to make this more competitive, I'd probably, kick these 2 out, probably ditch the Gumbaroo, and throw in some more spirit beasties like White Stag, who gets buffed with any other beasties with the forest boost. So he would get boosted a lot, given that you probably have a lot of squirrels out there on the board. The White Stag is a crazy beastie in and of itself, so we'll have a feature build, forest spirit build, kind of built around the White Stag as well. But some other builds specific, even with the squirrel, going the spirit dark angle with including familiars and spamming those spirit and dark spells for 1 less would be interesting. And last but not least, I can't help but not say and include the Stikini Owl is a great inclusion here as well. It's one of my daughter's favorite beasties and cards to play, but it is a little higher cost and doesn't always hit exactly right, but I think it's a nice fun card to include in this build as well. From a budget standpoint, like, this is the budget deck, so it was built for primarily, like I said, for my kids that they could put together and quickly play. So trying to find cards that I wouldn't be worried about if they got dinged up or put through the ringer, so to speak. You know, similarly to other builds, obviously the Prismoras are ones that you might not want to hand over to the kiddos. But, you know, these can easily be replaced by just another Spirit and Forest aura, which typically either we play, you know, we'll put in a proxy for a Prismora or just play that extra Forest or Spirit. And it's you know, runs just as fine, given that basically all these cards, except for these ones, cost less than 2 to play. You know, aside from those pricey pages, this deck is really built primarily on common and non-holo pages that are super easy to put together. You know, a version exactly like this or something similar if you want something that is easy to play and is a little bit customized, but, you know, not exactly one of those, you know, sealed or theme or release event boxes, right? If you want to show up with something a little bit different. So, all right, I hope everybody enjoyed this build. We will be looking forward to next week. We're going to be featuring a Ground and Frost deck dual aura build. I got worms. Be sure to check back. Peace out. Appreciate you coming through.